What would you do if an uninvited dwarf came and hung his things up in your hall without a word of explanation? Hi, welcome to the Literary Archives, your home for all things literary and the teaching of such. I'm Amanda Poston, and today is our very first chapter, First Friday, where every Friday we're going to read from the first chapter of a book, and we are starting off the year with The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Today is extra special because this is my favorite book, and on January 3rd, 1892, the man who would create the best fantasy story of all time, J.R.R. Tolkien, was born. So without further ado, let's go on an adventure. The Hobbit was originally written as a story for Tolkien's own children, and in September of 1937 it was published, but they only ran 1,500 copies, and Tolkien was very worried that the sales wouldn't match his expectations. So they had a short running, but by December of that year they were sold out, and he had submitted his notes for edits on the second edition. Now, fast forward to today, over 100 million copies of this wonderful book have sold, and it has continued to inspire countless readers and writers since its publication. This story is about a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, who embarks on a journey with 12 dwarves and Gandalf the Wizard to reclaim the Lonely Mountain from the dragon Smaug. Although he knows only a few details and isn't supposed to be going on adventures because adventures are unbecoming of hobbits, as we will see, Bilbo agrees to the terms and becomes the 14th member of the company and their burglar. Yet all throughout the journey, Bilbo longs for the comforts of home, his armchair, his books, his tea, and a lot of readers can connect with this as well. I find this connection between Bilbo and his home in the Shire especially touching because it's a reminder of the things that truly matter in one's life. It's not the gold and fame that one should strive for, as that calls forth dragons, but rather we should be striving for peace and happiness and a sense of home. Bilbo's desire to be home in his armchair is mentioned throughout the book, most notably towards the end when Thorin the Dwarf King tells Bilbo, "There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world." Let us begin this reading at an unexpected party. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door like a porthole, painted green, with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened onto a tube-shaped hall like a tunnel, a very comfortable tunnel without smoke, with paneled walls and floors tiled and carpeted, provided with polished chairs and lots of pegs for hats and coats. The hobbit was fond of visitors. The tunnel wound on and on, going fairly but not quite straight into the side of the hill. The hill, as all the people for many miles round called it, and many little round doors opened out of it, first on one side and then on another. No going upstairs for the hobbit. Bedrooms, bathrooms, cellars, pantries, lots of these. Wardrobes, he had whole rooms devoted to clothes. Kitchens, dining rooms, all were on the same floor and indeed on the same passage. The best rooms were all on the left-hand side going in, for these were the only ones to have windows, deep-set, round windows looking over his garden, and meadows beyond, sloping down to the river. This hobbit was a very well-to-do hobbit, and his name was Baggins. The Bagginsons had lived in the neighborhood of the hill for time out of mind, and people considered them very respectable, not only because most of them were rich, but also because they never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. You could tell what a Baggins would say on any question without the bother of asking him. This is a story of how a Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing and saying things altogether unexpected. He may have lost the neighbors' respect, but he gained, well, you will see whether he gained anything in the end. What The Hobbit has that The Lord of the Rings lacks, necessarily so, is a sense of humor. There are many moments in The Hobbit where the narrator speaks directly to the reader, pulling them in as the 15th member of the company on the journey to the Lonely Mountain. And the narrator does this either in jest or as a way of clarifying some aspect of Middle-earth or the role of a hobbit. And these asides not only bring the reader along this journey and through Middle-earth, but they also help to keep the momentum and the banter alive within this story. This is an art form that I think is lost in most modern books, but is definitely one mastered by Tolkien. If we head back to the beginning, the narrator asks, "And what would you do if an uninvited dwarf came and hung his things up in your hall without a word of explanation?" This is a perfect example of the narrator's lighthearted tone, and it makes the reader ask, what would I do if a dwarf came uninvited to my home? And it gives us a sense of what Bilbo is going through. For the teachers out there, The Hobbit is the best text to use for mentor sentences. Tolkien has an excellent command of grammar, specifically his punctuation, and he uses it to create vivid and beautiful passages. Students can practice using that grammar, understand why Tolkien is doing what he's doing. You can also use The Hobbit to teach the narration style of asides to help students experiment in their own creative writing. The Hobbit is my favorite book, and it remains firmly at number one. So I am thrilled to be able to share this with you 133 years after Tolkien was born. Thank you for tuning in to the Literary Archives. I'll see you next time, and happy reading.